Hello, I'm Alexis Williams with Caregiver Convo, and I have with me today my partner in crime, Pastor Odell Cleveland. We're delighted that you've joined us. Today we're going to talk about, what are we going to talk about, Pastor Odell?
We're going to talk about the hospital. And a lot of times as caregivers, when someone who we're caring for go to the hospital, and you're that person, now all of a sudden you get the phone calls and you're trying to navigate and all that. So that's what we're going to talk about, the hospital today.
Oh, the hospital is a tough topic. Nobody likes getting that phone call, and it usually occurs at a really inconvenient time.
Definitely.
It's never, 9 a.m. On a Saturday when you have all day to go to the hospital. It never happens that way, does it?
Yeah, no, definitely. And but before we get into the hospital, Alexis, I noticed that you have some little hats.
Yes.
And I feel I'm touched. She got a hat that goes with my outfit.
That's
so it's
right.
like, how did you know I was wearing this outfit today? And so now Alexis have the good-looking black guy wearing accessories. Do I put it on my wrist like a prom?
Oh.
Or do I put it up here?
No.
Or do I put it on my head?
No, my idea was that we always talk about that caregivers wear many hats.
Okay, so many as in M-I...
M-A-N-Y.
Not
many.
M-I.
No.
Okay.
No, not like small. Like many. M-A-N-Y.
So, Alexis, how do I look?
You look fabulous.
I look fabulous?
Yes, you
Does
know what?
my hat fit?
You know what, Pastor Odell? Not only do you look fabulous, when you put those on, guess what you're going to be?
I'm going to be what?
You're going to be fierce but fabulous.
So, I am fierce.
That's right.
But fabulous.
Caregivers are fierce but fabulous.
As you all know, you've been listening to us and tuning in for quite some time now. We like to have fun.
That's right.
At the same time of having fun, though, we want to make sure that you know that we understand, because both of us are caregivers, that we understand that it's okay. We give you permission as a caregiver to laugh.
That's right.
And if it makes us making a fool of ourselves to bring a smile on your face, it's worth the investment.
Absolutely. I think that if we all had some fierce but fabulous glasses with us when we went to the hospital, the experience might be a little lighter, a little more fun, because sometimes it can be tough.
When you go to the hospital, I can remember going to the hospital, a friend of mine, and it doesn't have to just be caregivers, a friend of mine, first thing, oh my God, he or she's in the hospital.
Yep.
What's wrong? We're trying to know all the information that we can, and nobody knows the information. So when they finally get settled, and now I'm talking pre-COVID, I'm talking before COVID. Now, after COVID, oh my God.
It's really hard.
Yeah, because now I'm the caregiver, but a lot of times I can't even go in the hospital.
No,
they make
I
me
know.
sit outside in the car, Alexis,
I
for
know.
hours.
I know. And so, like we've said many times before, so often in caregiving, we have to figure out how we're going to communicate and how we're going to handle or be the person to speak with those other people in the hospital.
So how do we be honest when we are the person in the hospital walking down the corridors and we look over here and we hear machines buzzing and beeping and lights coming on like we're in the cockpit of an airplane, and all we can say is, I'm tired, where's the restroom? I parked, I got the parking deck, I got that figured out. How do I go to the hospital? And they say, and the people who I ask, they're like, oh, just go down and turn and da-da. Like they're there every day because they're there every day, but I'm not.
No, I think you raise a really good point. Like you have to decide, okay, you're the person who's been called.
Yes.
Or they've notified you, hey, this has happened. You're supposed to go to the hospital. So not everybody thinks, well, how am I going to get there? Maybe you're in a place you're unfamiliar with.
Yes.
Maybe you need to call and say, I don't know how to get there. Can you give me directions? Which parking deck is the closest to where my loved one is? That might be a good idea. But yes, you park the car, then you navigate inside. It's never easy. It's not like it's the first door on the right. Oftentimes it's 4 buildings over on the 6th floor down at the end of the hall. So yes, it's important to ask questions. It's important to try to not be overwhelmed because all of a sudden your loved one is in crisis, more than likely, then you're in crisis, and then you're having to figure out what all's going on and what happened and or, what's next.
Alexis, I am just stunned. What you just mentioned to me, what you just talked about, brought back so many memories that I know our audience as caregivers understand. And let me tell you what it brought back to me. And I'm gonna get to the word, but there's something just like, wow. When we got the call that my sister, who was receiving a double lung transplant at Duke University. Okay, we knew about it, we were talking about it, but the actual call. So she's in the hospital. So we get called that night, okay, a donor, and I thank God for a donor. Listen, thank God for organ donors. I thank God for the donors and the donor's family. I don't know who the donor was or who the family is, but I just want to say thanks to all donors and their families. So we get the call and we rush from here. Now, I'm still caring about my mother, who's in Charleston 6 hours one way. Now, my older sister, we say big sister, my big sister is going to get 2 lungs. So we get the call, so we go there. And now Duke University, thank God for Duke. And it's like, okay, first thing, I know what Duke is, but now finding the hospital, okay? We find the hospital. Where to park? Okay, figure out where to park. Nope, you can't park there. You can't park here. You park over there. Okay. Can we come in? Nope, you can't come in. And these people, they weren't being rude. These people are doing their jobs. COVID, 2 years of COVID, they're doing fine. And now a lot of the customer service is coming from a security guard with a badge and a gun. So, things are a little tricky. So now the waiting. See, the waiting, it's the waiting, Alexis, the waiting. So now all of a sudden you're waiting and they say stuff like, as a caregiver, okay, my brother-in-law was able to go in and the surgery's going on. They said, okay, they put 1 lung in. And you don't think about it. It's almost, they were doing the surgery like they were rotating tires on a car.
Wow. Okay.
And so, and I was like, okay, everything's good with 1 lung in. Now this is an 8-9 hour surgery.
I started to say, were y'all sitting in the car the whole time?
No. We went back to they got an Airbnb because when you do transplants and in certain programs, you have to be in the vicinity within 20 minutes of the hospital commit for months.
Okay.
And then you have to have 1, 2, 3 caregivers.
Okay.
And my brother-in-law was the primary caregiver. My nephew was secondary, and I was the 3rd caregiver.
Okay.
So I'm a caregiver for my sister because they had to have all that on the application to be considered to even do that. So now it's like, okay. And then it hit me, and that's where what you said just hit me. For them to have 1 new lung in, they took my sister's old lungs out. So here I am thinking that my older sister is laying in a hospital with no lungs.
But at the same time, isn't that great that medical technology enabled that to happen?
Yes.
That's scary.
But as a caregiver, and I'm sitting there saying, okay, if something goes wrong, if my sister doesn't make it, it's going to be Odell's responsibility. Back to the person who has to relay all information. I'm going to have to call my mother, my 79-year-old, disabled, soon to be 80-year-old mother, and I'm going to have to tell her. So as part of being a caregiver, we have to share good news, bad news,
so true.
Everything when we don't really know. And I'm like, how did I get here? And I understood how I got here with my mother. I understand that. We understood that. Now I'm here with my sister and my mother at the same time. And I'm not whining. I'm put the hat on. I'll put it on this side.
I think that you have a better look when you wear the glasses instead of the hat.
Okay.
Because remember, you're now a caregiver for 2 people at the same time. You're fierce but fabulous.
So how many hats I'm wearing now?
Lots. Multiple hats.
Okay.
And glasses.
And glasses. So I'm preparing myself. Nobody knows, but I'm preparing myself that if I have to make this call to mommy,
It has to be so hard.
what am I going to do? And then I figured my brother-in-law will handle, if things didn't go right, the kids and everything else. So now here I am. And it's like, man, being a caregiver is not all it's stacked up to be in the hospital.
No, you have to do a lot of things anymore because I think how the system is set up, you're the communicator, but what's your word? What's the word that you use?
You just blew me away. And I think for most caregivers, these thoughts come back sometimes. You know, when you're the point guard, the information chief, it'll come to me. But just how do you control, as caregivers, how do we control when those memories and those emotions come back and you like, I just plowed my way through. But plowing my way through or plowing our way through, is that healthy for you, and I? Because the show's about caring for those who care for others. And a lot of times we're caring for everybody else, but who's caring for
Odell, who's fierce but fabulous.
Odell, who's fierce but fabulous?
You know, Pastor Odell, when you talk about that, I think that we take for granted sometimes because we have had caregiving experiences that other caregivers have some understanding of just what we talked about, that they're familiar with the lay of the land at the hospital. They're familiar with, okay, you get the phone call, you go. You know, the thing you didn't mention is it always costs money to park in the parking deck.
Yeah.
Or you have to figure out how to, you have to
$20.
navigate how to use that darn, take a picture of the license. Yes, darn.
Darn? Darn? Okay,
Yes.
okay.
You have to take a picture of your license plate and then go to the kiosk, pay for your parking, pass or parking ticket, and then go up. Or you have to remember to take your ticket if you get to go up. Yeah. I mean, so we've just now parked. We finally found our way. We navigated parking. We found a spot. We've paid for our ticket. And then we still haven't even gotten in the building yet. Right. So there's so many steps that you don't think about. Like, if you get the call, your mind is, okay, I got to get over there.
Right.
But you don't think, do I have money? Do I have cash? Do I have my credit card? Do I know where I'm going? How long is it going to take? Have I fed the dog? I'm going to be gone an undetermined amount of time. Is everything settled at home? So again, you're a caregiver with many hats trying to knock out many things.
This is just amazing how I had no idea that this segment of the hospital would bring so many memories back. I remember my son when he was first born, Calvin Odell Cleveland III. My son was born premature. You know, me and my wife, we were married 2 or 3 years. We purchased a house because we had it all planned out. You know, everybody has their life planned out. Graduate from college, get married, purchase a house. A year and a half later, 2 years later, start working on our family. So everything's fine. Then he was born premature. 3 pounds, 14 ounces.
Wow.
So he's in this thing called NICU. Never knew what a NICU was. So now I'm a caregiver and a parent, and I have a mother or a wife who didn't bring her child home with her from the hospital.
No, that's hard.
And he stayed in the hospital for 2 months, 2 or 3 months, 2 months. So working every day, and we got a call once. Back to those calls. And the doctor's like, well, something's going on. Your son have bleeds in his brain.
Oh, okay. Wow.
So here we are. My wife calls and she said, are you okay? And I'm like, what's going on? And she started just talking, and you go from talking to crying. It's almost like you having a conversation where you're stumbling. You're like, oh my, da-da. And then when she finished crying on the phone, macho man, because who I am, I go to my supervisor, my boss, and say, hey, just got a call from my wife. I need to go home. And all of a sudden, I just broke down. I broke down in the office. The last thing I want to do is break down in the office. And I just started crying. And he's like, no, go ahead, Odell, and go. And it's just the emotions is like, how much can a caregiver take? How much can someone take? And I remember going to the hospital, and we are people of faith, so we prayed and got the church to pray and do all this kind of stuff. And I'll talk about the miracle of all that later on. However, going back and forth all that time, months. And I remember once, Alexis, I was driving my car, and I remember praying to God. I said, God, if my son's going to die, please allow him to live and let me die. However, God, as long as when I wake up and open my eyes, I'm in heaven with you. And I remember closing my eyes with every belief in my body that I was going to die. And I remember opening my eyes and saying to myself, you ain't ready yet. God ain't ready for you. But I knew that my son would be okay. And we got the report later on that when they examined him again a couple of days later, it was no sign of a bleed.
Really? Wow.
And now my son is fully grown, because they were saying stuff like, well, your son may be special ed, he may not be able to speak, all those things that when you go to the hospital, whether it's my son, whether it's my sister, whether it's my mother, whether it's your family, your loved one, you get so much information from the hospital that it's like, oh, please, time out, stop. Can I take a break? Can I get some water? Can I just stop and go pee?
Pastor Odell, you remember when we talked one time before, we had a conversation about in caregiving, you're pulled in all kind of directions.
Yes.
So I had a thought.
Okay.
I brought my whiteboard today
Okay.
so that maybe we could talk about, all right, so we've already said that the hospital experience can be overwhelming, right?
Uh-huh.
It can bring back memories.
Yeah, is that memories that I don't want to handle? How about if I don't want to, how about I'm in denial of those memories?
Oh, that's too complicated. Let's just talk about the fact that you are experiencing things that I think caregivers experience.
Yeah.
They go one time and it could be traumatic.
I blocked it out.
And so then
I blocked it out for years.
you've had lots of opportunities to be a caregiver. So it brings back memories. So you're dealing with that. All right. So what's the second thing that happens that we've discussed? You're having to deal with lots of people and you're the communicator, right?
Yeah.
All right. So you're
I'm like the communicator and chief.
you're the designated communicator.
Okay.
Okay. And then what happens next?
Well, I don't know. People want me to answer all the questions, and I don't know I don't even know the questions, much less the answers.
So now you have to be a knowledgeable communicator.
I know nothing like Sergeant Schultz on Hogan's Hero. I know you all don't know anything about that. I know nothing.
All right, so now you have to be a knowledgeable communicator.
Yes.
Did you plan to be a knowledgeable communicator?
No. I was just trying to eat breakfast.
So you had to put on many hats on your one day going to the hospital, right? You might, yeah, exactly. Beautiful. So at the hospital, you have decided that it's best to communicate how? Did y'all divvy up responsibilities?
No.
It just sort of happened.
Yeah, it was just like, it's like people calling. How's your mama doing? What's going on? This and that, and communicating so many different ways. Mm-hmm. All these people coming in the hospital room is like, who are you? Who are you? I'm the this, I'm the app, I'm the doctor, I'm the physician. I'm here just to take the blood pressure. I'm here to clean the room. I'm here to make sure she take her meds. I'm here to make sure she eats. I'm here to do all this. And not trying to be funny, because everybody knows Odell need to lose a pound or two, and I'm working on that. But nobody asked me if I'm hungry, I mean.
It's patient-centered care, Pastor Odell. Not all the time is it caregiver-centered. It's patient-centered. Sorry, hate to be the bearer of bad news. It's patient-centered. But you raise a really good point. Sometimes people feel more comfortable if they have an understanding of how things work.
Right.
So just then you talked about there might be a hospitalist. That's a very big word. a hospitalist. There might be a charge nurse. There might be a case manager. There might be a social worker. There might be a phlebotomist. There might be somebody from the dining area. There might be somebody who's cleaning up. There might be somebody who's just the one person to take the x-ray. Who knows? But they all come in, and you're assuming that they know what they're doing and that they've all communicated just like you're being charged to communicate.
Right.
For your loved one. That's a lot to, your background isn't medicine, I don't think.
No. My background is the good-looking black guy.
Of course it is. Sorry.
What's wrong, Alexis?
That's right, Pastor Odell. You're fierce but fabulous.
Exactly.
I need to remember
I'm trying
that.
to survive.
That's right. That's right.
Survive,
That's right. Okay. All right. So if we were to sort of think about this, now that you're being expected to have an understanding of the setting,
yes,
you got there, you navigated that. Now you're seeing about the person that you're in charge of, or that your loved one's there. Now you kind of understand the lay of the land. While you're there, do you just sit in the chair? What are you doing anymore in healthcare? It's different now.
I am scared out of my mind. Do I want to be the person holding my mother's hand as she leaves this earth? Part of me says, yes, I want to be there to comfort her. I want to do this. But the other part of it is like, I don't want my mama to leave me.
That's a lot. You're dealing with a lot.
I'm telling you. Mm-hmm. And then I couldn't even get a peanut butter and jelly sandwich.
No, because they're not worried about you, the caregiver. They're worried about the patient.
And then we have those family members who never call to check on anything. Now they're calling demanding. You need to do, I don't need to do nothing. Don't tell me what I need to do. And you're in California and I'm in South Carolina. Don't tell me what I need to do.
So in that moment, right then, when you kind of are put on guard, or you're kind of defensive because they're asking you what you.
I'm getting hit from everybody.
What do you suggest caregivers do? What do you embrace in that when you're on the phone and you're trying to navigate all the things that are going on? What is it that you tell yourself about the situation?
Don't answer the phone. Don't answer the phone until don't answer the phone until I'm mentally prepared, because now I don't know. And it's better to text, because I could text some stuff to them and kind of communicate versus on the phone. Now all of a sudden I'm on the phone and they're like, I'm on the witness stand. Instead of asking me questions for understanding, it's almost like folk trying to interrogate me.
So in that instance, you were thinking that maybe a group text would work. You could create a group text so you didn't have to send it. I wasn't even thinking
about no group. I was thinking about me.
Okay.
How can I manage drinking from this fire hose on both ends?
Okay.
Because it's coming to me from the docs. It's coming to me from my family. You know what? One of the things that came out of all this, I wrote a book.
You wrote a book?
I wrote a book.
What'd you write about?
Caregiving.
Oh, you wrote about caregiving.
Yeah.
Did you actually use some of your experiences in the hospital and use them in your book?
Let me share this with you.
Okay.
Fabulous. Fierce and fabulous is good, but when you're old like me, you need glasses that you can see. So I'm going to read one paragraph called The Hospital in my book.
Okay.
My book is My Turn Now, Caregiving 101. And Chapter 6 says the hospital. One of your roles as a caregiver is explainer-in-chief. Never is more true than when your loved one is in the hospital. You're the person getting all the information. The doctor comes in to talk to you. The nurse comes in to talk to you. You're listening to the dietitian, the physical therapist, the phlebotomist. So it stands to reason that you're the person giving out all of the information. You're summarizing and diagnosing the treatment, the medical terminology for family and friends. You're providing updates over and over every time the phone rings or the text alert dings. You're fielding questions from well-meaning relatives. Did you ask the doctor this? Did you ask the nurse that? Why won't you hurry up and run the test? If it were me, I'd take him to another hospital. You even expected to tell visitors how to get to the room. There's no rest for the weary, and definitely no rest in the hospital. Not for the patient, not for the caregiver. And I could go on and on in that chapter, but that's how I felt.
Yeah.
So I internalized it to the point where it was bothering me. So I started writing about it.
So in my mind, again, when you talk about all of that, it reminds me that sometimes these experiences repeat themselves, so it brings back memories. You sometimes have to take on a job that you didn't know that you were going to have to take on, which was to be the designated communicator.
Yes.
And then you're supposed to be the smart and all-knowing, knowledgeable communicator.
Yes.
But then at the same time, kind of to think about this topic of what it's like to be at the hospital, I think what you've said to me before is you have to resolve that you're just doing the best that you can under the circumstances. You have to think about the fact that, yes, I have all these things going on, but as a general rule, the fourth idea would be you're just doing the best that you can.
Yes.
And that can be your reply to other people. When they call, say, hey, we're doing the best that we can right now. I'll be back in touch. I think as when I look at my experiences with caregivers, as a general rule, that's exactly what they're doing, the best that they can. And I think when I hear you talk about all of this, you're a little more seasoned now than you were when your child was in the hospital.
Yeah.
You kind of got in the groove. You know how to do the hospital thing. Then we did experience COVID, and now they do have different methods of how you get in and what to do and the protocols. But again, I think you've kind of decided we're doing the best that we can. That's all we can do.
You know, it's interesting you would say that because when I wrote the book, people read the book and like, oh my God, this is great, this is great. And then even though I did the best I can with the book, people said, okay, you need to do a workbook now to help with families. So not a shameless plug, but a shameless plug.
Oh, yeah, let it be a shameless plug.
Yes, let you know that this is the book and this is the workbook also. And so many families have benefited from it. And if you're interested, contact me and I'll give you a free copy if you can't, if you need a free copy. Thank you.
Thank you. It's been a good session today, Pastor Odell.
Yeah, but you made me cry. All these emotions and stuff coming up. I didn't expect that. I'm talking about the hospital, but realistically, as caregivers, we're talking about us. Listen, thank you so much for joining us today. With all love for the hat.
And the fierce but fabulous.
We appreciate you, and we'll see you again soon. Thank you.